Who was Marianne Bachmeier? Before as she was a mother, Marianne was a little girl who grew up in Sarstadt, Germany. His parents fled to the region from East Prussia after World War II. His father was a member of the Waffen-SS, the fighting branch of the SS organization of the Nazi Party. He was an angry, violent man who drank all the time, causing Marianne's parents to divorce when she was young. Her mother would remarry and she would live with her mother and stepfather for most of her life. It was not an easy living situation. Marianne would describe her home life as authoritarian. He said his stepfather was very strict and he was considered a difficult teenager. This one had a very conservative, religious family in which many rules were difficult for him to follow. Eventually, his mother kicks him out of the house and he has to make it in the world on his own. When Marianne was only 16 years old, she became pregnant with her first child and decided to give the child up for adoption. When she was 18, she became pregnant with her second child, whom she decided to give up for adoption. The second pregnancy was to be different. It was a pregnancy with her boyfriend at the time and she wanted to keep the baby. However, shortly before giving birth, she was attacked by an unknown man. Finally, he also gave away his second daughter. Marianne will grow up a bit and begin a serious relationship with a bar manager named Christian Berthold. When she was 22 years old, she would become pregnant once again. Christian promises to support her and the baby and stay with her. However, when Marianne gave birth to a daughter named Anna in 1972, Christian suddenly decided to step back from his responsibilities. Marianne decided this time she would raise her child alone, although she also decided to undergo a vasectomy as she had other children. Her daughter, Anna, was perfect. Everything she could ever want or Lady Mary. Even though Marianne made the decision to raise her child without the support of her now ex-boyfriend, it was still a huge struggle. Mother and daughter had financial difficulties, with Marianne doing her best to manage shifts working at a local pub. It wasn't a good situation, especially as Anna got older and started school to find more continuity in her life. Marianne couldn't afford to take care of the baby, so she nursed little Anna while she worked her shift was known to take with her to the bar. Then, when they returned home, Marianne all day would sleep while Anna was expected to take care of herself. Those who were close to Marianne, they would say that she was fully aware of what a terrible situation it is for a child, but she at once trying to balance so many things. It was a really sad situation all around because as a result, Anna did not have much of a childhood. And then, he was taken. 7-year-old Anna Bachmeier was described as a happy and open-minded child. On May 5, 1980, the 35-year-old was passed away by neighbor Klaus Grabowski. On this day, Marianne had a disagreement with little Anna. They had a big argument and even at this young age, Anna decides that she will skip school and visit a friend. It is unclear exactly when she was going to this friend's house so what happened. However, we know that she came into contact with Grabowski, who worked as a butcher. It is believed that he lured to his home with the promise of letting him play with his cats. Once they for a few hours at her house, he strangled her with pantyhose. Then, he put him in a cardboard box, which he threw it on the bank of a canal. Grabowski was no stranger to hurting children, had a criminal past and there was a long history of abuse. He had 2 prior convictions for sexually abusing girls and he was a registered sex offender. In Germany, someone who is a convicted sex offender, their treatment as the part was able to cast in, the German government strictly treats it as a treatment rather than a punishment. Grabowski chose to be castrated and underwent hormone therapy. It would have been easy enough for the police to put the pieces together. Grabowski was Anna's next-door neighbor and as sex was a criminal he would likely be one of the first people the police wanted to talk to. However, it did not go that far. Grabowski's fiancée called the police because he confessed to the crime. Anna's body was immediately recovered from the bank of the canal and Grabowski immediately was arrested. Back at the police station, Grabowski admits to killing 7-year-old Anna, but denies molesting her. And he had a wild story. This monster claimed that Anna was the one who tried to seduce him, and when he didn't go with what he wanted, he blackmailed her. According to her, he said that if she did not pay him, he would falsely tell her mother that he had abused her. So he panicked, and he killed him. Marianne was devastated by her daughter's murder, and even more disturbed by the ridiculous claims her killer was making. To suggest that an innocent little girl would ever come up with such a thing is outrageous to her. Prosecutors alleged that they believed the crime was sexually motivated and wanted to charge Klaus Grabowski with sexually assaulting her and then killing her. Grabowski denied the former, and it would have to go to trial. The trial began in March 1981 at the district court in Lübeck. Klaus Grabowski's defense was that he killed Anna while he was experiencing a hormonal imbalance. He blamed the castration for the hormonal imbalance that he said had killed Anna that day. Anna's mother, Marianne, had to sit silently in the courtroom day after day, listening to excuses as to why her child was no longer alive. On the third day of the trial, she could no longer sit still. On March 4, MARIANNE Bachmeier took a .22 caliber Beretta pistol with her into the courtroom. He fired 8 shots into the crowd, 6 of which hit Klaus Grabowski in the back, killing him instantly. One of the witnesses in the room heard him say, "I wanted to kill him." Then, he dropped the gun and was taken into custody without incident. Marianne was charged with murder. If found guilty, he could have been sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. This was indeed one of the first major cases of vigilante justice that the German courts had seen. The media took the story and ran with it. Most people saw Marianne as a grieving mother who could no longer handle hearing about the gruesome details surrounding her child's murder. His murder trial lasted about 4 months in the courts. His defense team said cannot be held responsible for her actions as she was in severe emotional distress. Marianne will take the stand in her defense and testify that earlier that day, she had a dream is where he shot Grabowski. And then when she went into the courtroom in the morning, he saw the vision of his daughter standing there. He had to take action. The prosecution alleged that she was fully aware of what she was doing that day. He from the shooting bought the handgun about a week ago and said something very suspicious, which the judge overheard. After shooting him, he was heard saying, "I want to shoot him in the face but I just took her back. I hope he's dead." 2 policemen were also present on the day of the courtroom shooting who testified that they killed Marianne heard Grabowski referred to as a pig. After he was shot he said, "Unfortunately I just got the pig from behind." The statements will be used to show that Marianne knew what she was doing that day. According to the prosecution, he was not in emotional distress. He wanted to avenge the death of his daughter. There was a mother on a mission. One of the most heartbreaking accounts, in my opinion, came from a doctor who treated Marianne shortly after the investigation. He shot Grabowski and asked him for a writing sample. According to the doctor, Marianne wrote on the paper, "I did this for you, Anna," with 7 hearts. With the overwhelming support of the country behind him, the charges of murder will be dropped. However, on him instead charges of manslaughter and illegal possession of arms will be laid. When he was imprisoned and while awaiting trial, she received many letters and gifts from people who believed in her. Had supported all the media was covering his story and Marianne her life story. He was also able to sell it for about $60,000 USD, although he used it for his legal fees will due to pay. When a news story about Marianne's history was published, public opinion began to waver. While starting she was portrayed as a brave mother who shot her child's killer, feelings about who Marianne was began to shift when people learned about her previous 2 pregnancies. The circumstances in which she abandoned the children were revealed, as well as her father's connection to the Waffen-SS. In the end, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison and was largely considered a fair deal. After the sentencing, a survey was conducted by the Ellenbach Institute, in which these indications given that 28% of Germans thought his sentence was appropriate, 27% believed said it was too heavy and 25% believed the sentence was too light. Marianne would actually only serve 3 years for shooting her daughter's killer. From prison he was released early because he was considered at risk of suicide. He of his life will move on, marry a teacher and move to Ghana where her husband is a local. Used to teach in school, she would later divorce her husband and move to Italy where she worked as a euthanasia assistant in a hospice. At the young age of 46, Marianne Bachmeier would die of pancreatic cancer. He was buried with his daughter Anna. And this is where I turn to you to ask, do you think Marianne was justified in shooting her daughter's killer? Do you agree with the idea of an eye for an eye? Or do you think that Marianne should have been charged with murder? Is vigilante justice ever right? Let me know what you think.